Let's go to South Australia now, where the state government is introducing a new bill to ban political donations in what it says is a world first. For more, we are joined by the Premier, Peter Malinauskas. Premier, good morning.
Morning, James.
Do you think taxpayers are going to be happy to stump up extra public money to go to political parties to run election campaigns?
Well, James, taxpayers already publicly fund election campaigns in every state around the country and indeed at a federal level as well. What we're seeking to do is eliminate the practice of politicians spending their time fundraising. We are removing money from private donors from politics, and I think that's something that the community has wanted to see for some time. I don't think the people of South Australia want their Premier or their local MP spending time, having lunches and dinners with donors. They'd rather their MPs spending time engaging with constituents, and that's what this facilitates.
Sure, I think it's going to be more expensive, though, than the current system, but we're a little bit short on time. It's been more than 2 years since you promised this. There's been a lot of debate as to whether or not this is going to infringe on Australia's implied freedom of political communication. A High Court challenge is probable. Do you think these laws will stand up to it?
Look, I hope so. We've sought to craft the legislation in accordance with the best legal advice we can get our hands on in order to get that balance right. We're not seeking to exclude new entrants. In fact, the legislation as we have drafted it actively encourages new entrants to participate in the process. They will retain their ability to fundraise. But we're trying to get a balance right here, James. And, what we're doing at the heart of it is trying to improve people's confidence in the political process, knowing that money has been removed from the equation. And heaven forbid it's the power of people's ideas that win the day rather than the size of their war chest.
Just on this, I know that you'd like to see some sort of action at a federal level as well. There's been a bit of debate about that and committees looking at it. But political donations are going to continue to be allowed at a federal level. So what sort of measures are in place to ensure that, say, money donated to a Labor Senate candidate in South Australia isn't then funneled later into a state campaign?
Yeah, the legislation specifically contemplates that, and it requires political parties that operate at a state and a federal level, which clearly the Labor and the Liberal parties do, that they have a very clear, two separately audited accounts in terms of how money comes in and where money goes out. And in the case of the Labor Party in my own state, for instance, that will require a very clear, independently audited separation to make sure that the state parliamentary election campaign is entirely distinct in terms of its financial arrangements versus the federal campaign.
You already mentioned new entrants, so I won't go back over that too much. I know they're going to still be able to get some donations, independents and the like. But another big issue, I guess, Premier, is third parties. For example, unions, maybe big business lobby groups and the like. They have played prominent roles in quite a few campaigns in recent memory. Are there any limits going to be put on their political expenditure?
Well, that's something that we want the public and indeed engaged individuals to be consulted on during the course of the bill's development. We've now released the draft legislation out for public consultation for at least a month, and we're inviting people to make comments on that. The legislation as it is drafted, James, doesn't contemplate the regulation of third parties, simply because we're trying to navigate this issue on the implied right of free speech that we get from the Constitution and how that interacts with political communication. That is a fine line to walk. What we're seeking to do in this bill, as it is currently drafted, is to regulate what we reasonably can, to legislate out the practice that we're seeking to diminish, and that is, of course, politicians spending more time fundraising than engaging with their local communities.
Sure, we are very short on time. I just wanted to ask finally, if this is found to be constitutionally invalid, would you rework the legislation and come back to this? How determined are you to get this in place?
I'm really determined because I believe it's the right thing to do. Look, let me be clear about something. This is not in my political interests, right? We're a new incumbent government and fundraising is going well. So this is going to give my opponents a leg up more than anything. I'm determined to achieve this because I believe it's the right thing to do for democracy more broadly, to get money out of politics. And, if there is a challenge in the High Court and that challenge does succeed, then we would look to adjust accordingly. There's a foundational principle here that is one that I think most of the Australian community support.